Let's be honest here, guys. Life's looking pretty grim nowadays. You got runaway inflation, skyrocketing costs of living, rising interest rates, housing market crisis in most of the places in our country, and to top it all off, major lockdowns in China that are causing all sorts of supply chain headaches. So in light of all this grim, I've decided to put together a list for you to still scratch that modification itch for under $100. Yes, guys, today we are budget balling, and I put together the top 5 mods I do to my WRX or STi for under $100. So let's jump straight into it. Coming in at number 1 is the pitch stop mount. I have this beautiful one from Factory Fab in my hands. Unfortunately, because of those supply chain issues that I mentioned, this specific one is currently out of stock, but I will definitely leave some from different brands that we do have in stock available from purchase ASAP in the description. Now, what does a pitch stop mount exactly do? Well, one end mounts into your firewall, other end mounts to the top of your motor, and it just basically helps with the engine rocking while you're getting on the throttle or aggressively getting off the throttle, banging through gears, etc. It prevents your motor from rocking too hard back and forth. Now, keep in mind, if you are trying to keep your WRX, STi, or even Legacy a nice daily driver, this will introduce some vibrations throughout the chassis, so just keep that in mind. Next up we have stainless steel braided brake lines. You might be wondering, what's wrong with my stock OEM brake lines? Well, if you're just daily driving, maybe nothing really. But if you like to take your car to the track or blast up a canyon, and especially if your car is older, chances are those rubber lines under braking situations, well, they're expanding, causing your overall braking system to lose pressure. That's bad because you want all that pressure going straight to your caliper. You don't want that pressure building up somewhere else, expanding a line, which in turn expands the system, which leads to, well, less pressure. Now, stainless steel braided brake lines fix that because obviously they're braided in steel, so there's no way that that brake fluid is going to expand these, leading to better braking performance, a better, more aggressive brake pedal feel, and more consistent braking. Now, look, I'm not going to lie. You're not going to be able to pick up lines for all 4 corners under $100. But if you have to choose, then definitely go for the fronts because, as you may know, pretty much all cars have a frontward braking bias, meaning the front brakes on cars typically have larger rotors, more pistons in the caliper, more surface area to brake because, well, when you brake, weight shifts forward, giving those front tires more grip to, well, brake harder. Next up on my list we have, well, short throw kits. Now, very simple, really nothing much to it. All that a short throw kit basically does is reduce the distance between the selection for each gear. So take this VA for example. Look at the distance between 3rd and 4th. It's ginormous, and I can swing this with one finger, literally with my pinky finger. That leads to, for me at least personally, a very boring shifting experience. Like, it's just very not engaging, unintuitive. It's just simple as just slapping it through gears, which, yeah, for me, really not much enjoyment. Now, for the other end of the spectrum, take our 2012 STi hatch as an example. We have a very aggressive short throw in this thing, and say, for example, my pinky wants to shift gears. Well, it can't. It just does not have the strength. The shifter in this thing is so much more engaging than in the VA. It takes much more muscle to shift between gears. And just look at the distance between 4th and 3rd, for example. Compared to our VA, it is just so much shorter, and to me, much more fun to drive this way. So if you're on the hunt for a more engaging shifting experience, go get yourself a short throw kit. Now, this next mod on my list is a tad bit controversial, but stick with me here, guys, all right? I'll promise I'll explain. It's the Get a Dom 4-cylinder cooling mod. Basically comes with rubber pipe, a T-splitter, an adapter piece, and some hose clamps to provide, well, extra coolant flow to cylinder number 4. Now, in stock form, there's nothing really wrong with how the 4th cylinder is cooled, but when you're going to something like a bigger turbo or just pushing the absolute limit with your stock turbo, things like this can happen. This is the piston out of our coworker's cylinder number 4 from his old car, and well, as you can see, it's completely melted through. Basically what this mod does is just redirect more coolant flow to cylinder number 4, which sits right next to the turbocharger. That's why it gets elevated temperatures compared to the other 3 cylinders in the first place. So if you're pushing the absolute piss out of your stock turbo or getting a bigger turbo, this is just a brain dead investment. You know, a wise man once said, better safe than sorry. Now, before I move on to the last mod on my list, I'd like to make some honorable mentions. First things first, we have polyurethane bushings. Now, they come in all sorts of shape and sizes and different types. For example, this is a bushing kit for a 5-speed transmission. It makes also the shift through feeling just like a short throw shift, a bit more engaging. There's also polyurethane bushings for things like steering rack for an increased steering feel. There's also, probably my favorites would be suspension bushings. Very highly underrated. They reduce the flex of suspension components under hard cornering, helping you keep proper alignment settings dialed in while, you know, zooming around corners. Now, next thing I'd like to honorably mention is, well, shift knobs. Shift knobs are great. They can add that special little touch to your car. You can find one that really feels good in your hand and that you enjoy shifting with. It's really plain and simple. Now for the final mod on my list, it would have to be turbo heat shield and or blanket. Now, what these essentially will do is prevent heat coming off of your turbo, getting into the engine bay. This will keep the heat concentrated in and around the turbo and help lower your engine bay temperatures by pretty drastic amounts, since we all know turbochargers do get fairly hot. All right, guys, that will about do it for my budget balling mods I do to my WRX STi, and some of them might even work on a legacy. Now, if you haven't seen our land speed car build, please go ahead and check it out. In the last episode, we got this thing all put back together and even started. And in a future episode, we even go and get it tuned-ish. I guess you'll just have to stay tuned to find out. See what I did there? Maybe give me a like for that one. Quick little fun fact before I wrap up. This thing actually has 2 of the mods that I spoke about in today's video, such as the pit stop and the braided steel brake lines. So if you want to stay tuned on this build, make sure to, you know, hit that subscribe button and maybe give me a like for some of the mods I listed, or, you know, my 1 or 2 corny jokes. As always, guys, I'll see you in the next one.